welcome to a different video. I wasn't really planning on making this video, but I just wanted to respond to, I put out that announcement video last Friday, and I felt like it warranted a response from me. Because there's a couple things that I want to say, and also I'm releasing this on Tuesday when I usually do the Real Talk Q&A episode, so we'll talk about that here in a minute. But first of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone who left an encouraging comment down in the comment section of that announcement video. There were so many people who just shared their story of how what I've been doing over the past 6-7 years has not just been like interesting for them to watch a video about leading worship, but it's actually made tangible differences in their church. And they were able to list those differences, and the main difference that they said, which this is the most encouraging part to me, the main difference is that they more closely align how they worship with their church with what Scripture says about worship. And they've incorporated more Scripture into their service, which that is the main goal of this channel. That's always been the main goal of this channel. But even more so now, like that is my direct focus. When I say we're headed deep into theology, that's what I mean. Not just the tangential stuff, which is, like I said in the last video, I won't repeat myself 1,000 times like I did in the last video. That stuff's important. Technology, gear, in a certain sense you need to know about that. But we're focused on the foundation here. And so it was just so good to hear that there are other worship leading weirdos out there. People who care more about theology than they care about technology. And you can still care about technology, but you care more about theology than you care about technology. And the thing is, like, I know things in that last video sounded harsh, and I think some of you took it as me saying, nobody in the world cares about theology in worship leading. And I'll just remind you that's not what I said. What I specifically said was that worship leaders writ large, that doesn't mean everybody. That means the vast majority of worship leaders care more about technology, gear, musicianship than they do about theology. And I know, and I knew, that there were people like you who left encouraging comments, who are worship leading weirdos who actually prioritize theology over technology. I knew that you existed. So thank you for identifying yourself. I wasn't saying that no worship leaders in the world cared about theology. My whole point in that video was if you care about theology, the vast majority of worship leaders do not. At least they don't above technology and musicianship, according to what they're looking for on YouTube, according to how they play out, if they're a full-time worship pastor, how they're 40 hours a week. So you're lucky if it's only 40 hours a week. How that is structured in your ministry. Where do you spend your time? Still getting over pneumonia. I'm doing better though. Don't worry about me. I'm just still clearing my lungs out of all the gunk that was in there. So I just wanted to say thank you to you worship leading weirdos. I know you're out there. That brings me to the second thing I wanted to talk about in this video, which is, I know I'm releasing this on a Tuesday, which is when I normally release the Q&A videos, the Real Talk series. I never know what to call it. In my mind, I call it Real Talk, but I'm not actually sure if that moniker has stuck for that series. So sometimes I call it the Q&A series. Usually on Tuesdays, I post a Q&A series video where I answer one of your questions. And part of the practical application of what I talked about in Friday's video, where I said, number one, I'm going to be focusing more on theology, but number two, I can't spend as much time on leading worship well as I have in the past, because before I was treating it like a part-time job, hoping that the income that I make from leading worship well would rise to a part-time income, and it hasn't done that. And so I need to focus my time in order to sustain myself financially in some other areas, and ultimately spend less time on leading worship well, one of the practical outcomes of that is that I'm not going to have the time to dedicate to the Q&A series. And when I say that, I mean my hours that I can spend on leading worship well, because it's now a passion project, it's a ministry, I still care deeply about it, and I'm going to be doing the best that I can possibly do. But I have to spend less time on it because I was treating it like a 20-hour per week job, and I can't do that anymore. And so one of the things that I have to step back from are the Real Talk episodes. And part of the reason is because now I have to be really intentional with where I spend my time. And I feel like the best use of my time are making the videos that I put out on Fridays where I talk about theological stuff, which is going to be even deeper into theology now. And so there's that aspect of it. The other aspect of it is I just feel like the Q&A videos, every once in a while I would get a theological question and it would make me so excited. And I would nearly run to church to film an episode where somebody asked a theological question. But that only happened very infrequently. I would say, I forget how many episodes of Real Talk I put out, but I got, probably over 250, maybe 300 viewer submitted questions. And I would guess that probably 5% of them had to do with theology, and 95% of them had to do with gear, had to do with musicianship, had to do with team leadership, from the perspective of something like my worship team members aren't prepared to lead worship on Sunday, or there's some conflict on my worship team, or I'm not getting along with my pastor, like interpersonal conflict questions. And I don't mind talking about that stuff, but the more I thought about it, like that's not even the direction of this channel. That's not the refocused direction of the channel. And I love to answer your specific questions. And if you have a theological question, I just got one last week or something. Somebody was talking about, it says we should sing psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. Why don't we sing psalms? Like, that's a question I would love to talk about in a Q&A series. But those questions are few and far between. And so I might make a video about that, a Friday video about that in the future. But when it comes to the Real Talk episodes, it just seemed like so much of it was focused on, I know they're like the problems that you feel the most in your ministry. But once again, this goes back to giving people what they want versus giving people what they need. And I think you probably saw that in how I answered the questions in the Real Talk videos. And so often, I almost, in a sense, I felt like I failed the person who asked the question, because they would ask some question and it would be like up here, like, how do I get my worship team members to prepare to lead worship? And I would almost bypass that and just dive down to the actual foundational problem. And I'm not sure I was able to make the connection all the time that these surface level problems, which I know that they feel like big problems at the time, but every surface level problem flows out of the foundation of your ministry. And that's why we need to focus down here, because all of this stuff down here, I guess usually you say it trickles down, but in this sense, because it's the foundation, it trickles up to the decisions that you make. Your theology informs everything in your ministry, assuming that you live out your theology in a tangible way. And I'm not sure that I was able to always make that connection for people. And so for those two reasons, stepping back from the Real Talk episodes, and in place of that, we're going hard into theology, which you already know. All right, I'm spending a lot of time focused on theology, all the time. I don't know why I said a lot. That's what we're focused on. And I want you to understand that, yes, theology has practical outcomes, but I'm focused on the foundation. And we might talk about, you've got to make theology practical. And so we'll talk about the practical outcomes of theology, but really the focus is the theology because that informs every decision that you make in your ministry. Which leads me, excuse me, to my last point. And that is one of the things that I noticed in the comments, which once again, thank you for your comments, were a lot of people said, Spencer, we want to support you in what you're doing. And we understand that you had created products that you were trying to sell to be able to sustain leading worship well. But we didn't need those products because we watch your channel, but we're not in that level of decision making in our church, meaning we're not going to buy a devotional for our worship team because we're not worship team leaders. We're not going to buy something that trains a worship leader in leadership level stuff. But we still want to support your ministry. And I had many of you reach out who asked, can we do that by donation? And like I said in the last video, it's not that I'm hesitant to do that. Maybe I just feel uncomfortable because I've always been viewing this as I want to provide value in exchange for money. But maybe I need to understand that the teaching on this channel is the value that I provide. And in ministry, it's not like you provide a product and you sell it to people. I think that is, by the way, I still have products on my website, so I don't want you to hear me saying, I'm not selling anything anymore. I don't want you to be confused about that. I still have devotionals on my website. I still have workshops. But some of you wanted to support me through donations. And so I set up a donation page on my website. You can hear more of my heart. I've written out something on there. You can hear that. But if you want to support me in that way, which by no means is it expected, this is a passion project. I suppose at some point, if I receive enough support through donations, maybe that is God's path for me to be able to do this on a more part-time basis, but I'm not making that my goal right now. I'm just saying if that happened, which you can see the numbers that I need to hit on the donation page to just sustain the ministry, but just because I'm sustaining what I do on Leading Worship Well through donations doesn't mean that creates a part-time income for me. Maybe at some point that's God's plan, and maybe I have been trying to hold on too tightly to I need to control this and I need to create valuable products so that people can buy them, and then I'll be able to support myself on a part-time basis through Leading Worship Well. And maybe that's not God's plan for me, and I just need to trust Him to provide for me in a different way. Or maybe I need to look into another option for just to be able to sustain myself. I don't know. But I'm saying if you care about theological content and the ability for me to continue to make it, which honestly I'm going to do because I love to do it, but hopefully you understand what I'm saying. I'm going to do it regardless, but some of you wanted the opportunity to support me in that way, so I'll leave a link to that down in the description below. Once again, 100% not expected, but some of you have already found the link that I just threw out there that most of you probably didn't even see, and you've chosen to support me in that way, and for that, I'm so grateful. Thank you for your support, and just thank you, even if you're not donating. 100% not expected. But if you want to, it's there. But even if you don't, thank you for your prayers, because I know a lot of you said that you were praying for me. Thank you for your encouraging words that weren't just I like this, but they were this is how what you have taught has made a tangible impact on the worship at our church. Thank you. Thank you for that. And until I see you in the next video, there's the update. Keep leading worship well.